The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hi, welcome to The Ring and all other sports. My name is Leo Connors and I'm your host, and tonight I have a very special guest returning from just a couple weeks ago, this time by himself, kick-ass Kyle Storm. Kyle, how are you?
What's going on, Leo?
Not much, man. Good to have you on. We got a bunch of fan questions and we got other things. We'll play the name game later, so let's get right into it. A guy I just talked to you about off air, Bo Douglas, all he put was Florida 2002.
Well, I'm gonna be honest. I don't remember much of the actual wrestling, but the drinking and partying that was done between where we were staying and the shows, and then before the flights. Like I said, I don't remember much of the 4 days. But it was interesting.
Now, was it just you and Bo, or were there more people with you?
Well, there were more people already. Jason Rumble was already down in Florida. So Bo and I flew down to join him. And, yeah, I mean, that's when I first met Haggis.
Oh, really?
Who I've become very good friends with over the years.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. I mean, like I said, like Leo, with the way things are right now, my memory is always the greatest. So I try not to talk about what I don't remember.
Right.
That way I don't get in any trouble.
All right. Maverick Wild says, what was the conversation with Tony Atlas after he got knocked out rolling into your knees?
Oh, Jesus. Okay. Well, after it happened, I didn't have a conversation with him at all because he went right to the hospital. And, I mean, to be honest with you, I was a complete fuck. I felt so bad. Even though I told him at least 7 times to roll in, and the last one being right as I was slamming him. So when I was upside down and saw him rolling out, I was like, oh, well, this is going to suck. We were at a show probably 6 months later to a year later, and he tried to insinuate that I did it on purpose so I could get a win over him.
Wow.
What's funny is he holds me responsible for using the Legend Killer moniker, but it was actually Randy Miller, who owned Chaotic, that gave it to me as soon as I knocked out Tony.
I think that's the second time Randy's name's been brought up.
Well, the piece of wrestling history is I was in modern, I was the first Legend Killer before Randy Orton did it.
Nice.
So it's the second thing that Uncle Vince stole from me, and then Eddie Guerrero started using Cheat to Win like 8 years after Matt and I were using it as the Dogs of War.
Nice.
So it's all kind of funny how it all went circulating.
Yeah, that is awesome. Jeff Keith wants to know, any thoughts on the hashtag Speaking Out that had over 70 alleged perpetrators and over 100 victims?
It's actually, I just had a conversation with Matt about this probably about 2 weeks ago, and how it doesn't shock me. I would say most of the names that have been named don't shock me. What I took pride in is the fact that none of my guys like guys that I had hands in training or bringing up are going to be added, like will ever be mentioned on that list. And I take pride in that.
And as you should, you know what I mean? Definitely. That's definitely be something to be proud of, for sure. Dave Fournier has a bunch of questions, so we'll go with the first one is, would you ever consider coming out of retirement for one moment? I think Dave really wants you to come out of retirement.
I'm going to be honest with you. There's probably little to no chance. Like I said, I've been having some pretty serious issues with my brain. I've basically been told they can't diagnose me because I'm not dead, but that I basically have CTE. It's just a question of where it sits. So I've already talked to a couple of different neurologists. So I'm going to say it's 99.999% chance I'll never be back in the ring.
Right. Well, with those problems, I wouldn't want to, even though I love watching you wrestle, I wouldn't want to see you go back and injure yourself any worse. You know, I really wouldn't. And I think Dave would feel the same way, but I'm just saying, I think Dave wanted you to come out of retirement, not for you to hurt yourself.
Dave likes watching me get bloody.
Yeah, he does. All right. He also wants to know, who do you consider your toughest opponent? I like this question.
Ooh. Toughest meaning strongest or toughest meaning to work with?
Toughest to work with. How about
toughest
both? Do both.
Toughest to work with would probably be Widowmaker. Eric Shred. It was just him and I I think we wrestled at least a dozen times, and it always just never seemed to go right. Something always went wrong. It just was never fluid. I like Eric a lot. It was never fluid. And I would say toughest meaning, just badass, would have to be Pat Garrett.
Yeah. He's a big dude, man.
Not even, he was just solid. I mean, as a worker, light, very, very respectful, took care of me. Him and I had great matches, but he was a tough son of a bitch.
He definitely is. He plays in that semi-pro football league, too. I mean, he is a tough guy. I have to bring this up real quick because you brought his name up. Eric Shred, the Widowmaker. My girlfriend's favorite wrestler. Do you know how I know this? I took her to a Trooper show and asked her to take pictures of the matches. She had 50 pictures of Eric Shred and 3 pictures of everybody else. Yeah. Yep, so she's a big Eric Shred fan. What was your favorite promotion to work for? You worked for so many.
Before I bought into PWF, I loved working for PWF. It was just an amazing. Matt did a great job, and before I bought in, and then that's what really made me want to buy in, because I wanted to see it continue to grow. But and the first year of Chaotic, that I was under contract was a lot of fun.
Nice. Okay.
So I think in 2000 and 2004 were probably my 4 favorite years of my career.
Nice. Okay. Dave's last question is, who do you think has the most potential on the current New England scene? You can throw a couple guys out there if you have a few of your new favorites.
I'm going to be honest. I haven't been following. I really don't know anybody, especially since the whole COVID thing. I moved out of New England 2 years ago. So I don't really follow it, but I really can't answer that question. I mean, I have my personal favorite, who is Mike McCarthy.
Nice.
But that's about it.
All right, just to answer for Dave, I think Dave knows these answers anyways. It's Chris Casanova, Anthony Green, Nico Silva. I mean, Channing Thomas. I mean, there's a lot of kids killing it right now.
Well, what I've seen, the New England scene is really huge. Like I said, I can't speak on it, though.
Right. There's a couple other young kids, seriously, that's pretty good. AJ Phoenix, he's just like graduated from high school this year. You know, and I just had the other one on the top of my head. I can't think of him right now. But CJ Cruz was pretty good, too. These questions, Kyle, are from me. I know you guys you and Matt trained quite a few guys. Is there anyone that you trained that surprised you and you didn't think was going to be that good, but turned out great?
Yeah, his name was Tyrone Scobie. He wrestled under Dirk the Package Johnson. And when he showed up, I just thought he was like, he was, best way to put this, he was a late 90s pretty boy. So I didn't think he'd flush out. I didn't think he'd actually surface. But he became a tremendous worker. And unfortunately, in his career very prematurely.
Well, that's a shame. All right, same kind of question. Is there anybody you trained that surprised you that didn't make it? Like you thought they were for sure going to make it?
The step?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mike McCarthy. I honestly can't believe that an AEW or an ROH hasn't picked him up yet. He is a tremendous worker and charisma that's unreal.
And a gimmick that no one really is doing right now. Really?
Oh, no. He's an asshole.
Yeah.
I mean,
I love it. All right, so I got this last-minute question from my good friend of mine, Dan Bolia, great friend of the show. He says, can I ask a last-minute question? Can I get your take on the Pat McAfee, Adam Cole stuff? Seeing everyone arguing on wrestling pages if it was a work or not. I believe it was a work. Did you happen to see that?
No, again, sorry. I can't comment on it.
That's what. I'll just tell you real quick what happened. They were having an interview, and McAfee said something to the effect of him being so small. Adam Cole slapped the microphone away, got up, was giving the F-bombs, and then walked off. To be honest, I think it's staged, but I'll tell you, Adam Cole's such a good worker that you kind of wondered if it was when he left, you know?
Yeah, unfortunately, I really can't comment on it.
Okay. I definitely wanted to talk to you about when you and Matt joined forces with Sheldon Goldberg in NECW. I know at first everybody, all you guys were so excited for it all to happen. What was the first thing you noticed that, man, this ain't gonna work?
I would say probably our very first event that we had together. Wow. That I was actually. Matt is a lot more easygoing than I am. He will not. He hates confrontation, so he'll grin and bear anything. Me, on the other hand, I am kind of outspoken and have gotten us in more trouble than he deserved. But he has got to be, by far, the laziest person I have ever seen claim to be a promoter. And that says a lot. I worked for Yankee Pro, and a lot of people thought Joe Eugenio was lazy. And I worked for NEWA, where, I mean, I've worked for promoters that always have, there are big things coming, speeches. But Sheldon takes the cake.
How long were you guys actually together? I don't remember.
Just about 5 years.
Wow. So it lasted 5 years, though. I mean, that's some good stuff must have came out of it, right?
Well, we had some terrific product that came out of it. If it wasn't for our other partner, Roy Rossi, it wouldn't have made it past 2 years. wouldn't have made it past a year. I mean, if it wasn't for Roy believing in us and supporting us financially, I mean, during the merger years, we didn't make a dime.
Wow.
We did not make a single dime.
That's a shame.
And anyone try to inflate numbers all they want, I actually have them. So I'm telling you, we didn't make a dime. Not 1 year did we finish in the black.
Wow. Now, who was booked? Who did you guys hire to book for you guys for the 5 years? Was it just one guy or a couple guys?
Well, pretty much, we used to have creative meetings where we'd agree on a certain direction for people and where we were thinking. But for the most part, Matt did most of the booking, along with, and then George Carroll came on board, and he did a lot of our booking with Matt. But most of the stuff was done by, I'd say, between Matt and George. Those are the two main guys.
Nice.
I tried to stay clear of booking. I was more interested in operations. Like, the day of show was when I did all of my work.
Gotcha.
Making sure the set was set, making sure that all the rows were set, that the shots for the video were right. That was more my thing.
All right. And just to say it, George Carroll's got a great mind for the business. I love George. Great guy.
I've known George since he was a wrestler in EWA, which was and NEWA. He was
Tiger Khan.
Tiger Khan.
Yep.
Sorry, I was going between him and Suicidal Silva. I couldn't remember what the name was. So I've known George since we broke in, and I've been fortunate that he's worked with a lot of the companies that I've worked with. So it's been good.
Nice. Yeah, like I said, he's a great friend of the show. I love George. Great guy. I got to ask you, now, Sheldon's, I got to say this, his TV stuff that he did, right? The NECW, what's it called? Legendary and things like that. Did that start when you guys were together with him?
No. That was his idea of continuing the TV that we ran on the internet. He had Brian Nato does all of his TV.
I was just going to bring him up next. I swear to God, that's a riot.
Yeah, that's a whole different story.
Yeah? Not any good?
Some people need to learn their place. We'll put it that way.
Yeah, actually, I've heard similar stories about same person. So, all right. You and Matt teamed up for how many years were you guys actually a team? You know what I mean? In one spot. I know later on he ended up teaming with Draven and stuff too, right? But how long? Good.
From 92 all the way until 98, with a brief 9-month break off because my daughter was born. We teamed, and then he went with Vinny from, I believe it was 99 to 2006, where I actually came in as part of the Dams in 2002 or 3. One of the two. I can't really remember.
So all three of you ended up together in the Damned.
Yeah, and then Matt and I went back to the Dogs of War in 2006. And then we were on and off. So pretty much my career ended.
Okay. I did tell you off air I wanted to talk about just a couple of matches I saw you have in Jersey All Pro Wrestling. The first one I noticed, it was on September 25th of 1998. You guys traveled down to New Jersey to take on D-Sex, Billy Reel, and the late, great Trent Acid. How was that match?
Again, from what I remember of it, I mean, I'm going to be honest with you, Leo. You got to get Matt on the show.
I would love to.
That kid's got a memory like a tape recorder. But I remember having a very, very good match with them, and we were supposed to do a really large storyline with them, but for some reason it never surfaced. I'm not sure if Billy Real got into an issue with Frank Idavea, or they split up. But I worked a JCW show against Trent probably 2 years later. So I think it was a problem with D-Sex, that the dogs in D-Sex didn't have a longer run. It was supposed to be a pretty good run.
Okay. And the other match, I told you off here, like I said, it was February 26th of 1999. You and Matt, the Dogs of Wars, taking on New Jack and Ruckus in Homicide and Kane D in a triple threat tag team match. Any memories?
I had one memory that I remember talking to Matt, and it was started where us against Homicide and his guys, and then Ruckus and New Jack came in later. And I remember Homicide saying, I was saying to Matt, dude, I'm not working Jerome. This is crazy. And I looked at Homicide and he goes, "No, don't worry, dude. We're gonna be done with you. We're gonna be done with your part of the match way before Jerome stumbles out of the locker room."
Wow. That's right. Now, was that the only time you wrestled New Jack?
It was the only time that I was scheduled to wrestle New Jack, yes. We brought him in the PWF, and I was involved in the run-in, but I never actually worked the match with him.
So, who did he work in PWF?
Jose Perez.
I should have known that.
Yeah.
All right.
Him in, so we let him have him.
Right. Now, like I was saying earlier, you've worked for so many companies, you know. One of the companies had just finished up, and I know you have a lot of respect for the guy that ran it. House of Bricks. How about tell me, any stories with Brickhouse Baker?
Well, he's actually one of my trainers. In 1995, Matt and I went to Yankee Pro, and he pretty much, between him and Mike Edwards, pretty much retrained Matt and myself. So I have a lot of love for that man. What's funny is, in the 25 years we've known each other, we have never wrestled each other.
Wow. I would have thought you guys would have had at least a handful of matches.
We had a 3-way tag match against when he was the other team, but I had never worked Mike Baker.
Wow. Incredible. I like I said, I find that hard to believe. That's a great story there. Power League Wrestling, you wrestled for. Who ran that? That wasn't Anthony's company, was it, Anthony Rupo?
That's Tommy D.
Okay, Tommy D's. Any stories from Power League Wrestling?
What's good about Power League is it's like all the old boys. That's like all the old boys that don't work anywhere else show up and work Tommy's. We all end up start drinking and hanging out, telling stories. One big reunion.
Nice. All right.
It's fun shows.
Okay. You also, I never even knew this promotion existed. United Pro Wrestling Association. Do you remember working for them?
Now, that was still Apollo's league, wasn't it?
Oh, I really don't know. Probably was. I had no idea whose it was.
Was I listed as his champ?
I don't remember what I think you might have been the champ, but did you work for Phil a lot?
Phil only ran one show at the Plymouth Memorial Hall.
Really?
It was one show. He didn't draw anybody. The guy that was working with him, the money man, completely talked out his ass. It was one of those guys that showed up thinking that he was Vince, and he walked out like he was like a peddler.
Right. Unreal. All right. Well, you were part of the very first crew at Chaotic, correct?
Correct.
What was it like when you had your first few shows for Chaotic, did you see like, wow, this maybe could be something? Or did you see that later from a distance when you saw Jamie being the owner?
Well, Jamie was the owner from day one.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that. I thought Randy Miller was. Okay.
There was 3 owners. Randy Miller was the figurehead, the front man, but there were actually 3 owners when it started.
Okay.
Actually, there might have been 4. I'm mistaken. There was 4. And he signed everybody the contract that he wanted exclusive. And I mean, it was, you could see the growing pain, and maybe the 4 owners not all agreeing on a direction. But when Randy stepped away, I definitely noticed that it was now a united front, and the growth of that company, I mean, it speaks for itself. It's still around.
Right, exactly. Like almost 20 years, if not 20 years. It's crazy. They've been around a long time.
It started in 2000, so it's 20 years.
Wow. And we don't know what's going to happen now. As Brian Fury says, he was selling the business. I don't know. We'll see what happens when shows can start, when people start running shows on a regular basis again.
To my knowledge, I believe they've already been sold.
Right. Right. I could have swore I saw Brian post that Chase is buying Chaotic. It's what I read. And that like Sonny and Scott Guerin and maybe somebody else is taking over the school. That's what I heard. I'm sorry, from Brian Fury.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Please. I haven't heard anything since that.
Okay. Again, I'm a huge Jersey All Pro Wrestling fan. I want to go back there again for a minute because I didn't realize you wrestled more than twice there. How did you end up getting booked down there? Did someone put in a good word?
This is the funny thing, all right? The Dogs, we had a promotional package that we sent out.
Nice.
When we left the show, we put together a promotional package, and we sent it to just about every company on the East Coast. And we called it the Doggy Bag. We had a paper bag, and it said Doggy Bag on it, and inside of it, there was a promotional tape, an 8x10, one of our T-shirts, and basically all of our information. So we sent out promotional packages, because that's how you did it back in the 90s. There was no internet really yet. I mean, there were message boards and AOL, but nothing like it is now. The social media and all that.
Right.
So it was still a lot of legwork. We physically snail mailed VHS tapes. It was good.
It was smart. Really, looking back now, it really was right. It got you guys booked down there, which was at the time a very hot company.
Well, we also got West Virginia. For that, we worked for ACCW out of West Virginia, and we got NWA East out of Pittsburgh, which was Samu's company before WXW.
Nice.
So we met a ton of people and did a lot of traveling in that 2 years.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, when you guys were down there at the Jersey Pro, they were just starting to, get a good buzz and get a big name. And it's unfortunate they don't, run anymore. Fat Frank has passed on. I actually catered both the Jersey All Pro shows that they did in Massachusetts. And
that's awesome.
Yeah, I got them through Homicide and the referee Sean Hansen. I don't know if you remember Hansen the rep, but those are the guys because they were all at the Ring of Honor shows.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. The most self-promoted referee in history.
No doubt. Absolutely. I actually went to his wedding. I became really good friends with him. And there was only 2 people. I'm not in the wrestling business. I'm around it. But 2 people that loved wrestling like him that was and we sat at the same table. I was at the same table as Danny Doran. And by the end of the night, I think he thought I was a drunk because it was open bar and they wouldn't give me a shot of tequila, but you know what they would give me? A glass of tequila. Oh, yeah. I was hammered, dude. It was a great time. Now,
wrestling, of course you're going to be hammered.
Exactly. Now, I know you said it earlier. You wrestled for Yankee Pro. Did you also wrestle for them when they were top rope?
No. We left Yankee Pro in 1998.
Wow.
We were there from 95 to 98.
Wow.
So it became Tom Rope and SPCW, or whatever that was. The other, their subdivision they had.
Right.
Yeah, so that was before that.
Okay. What was I going to say? Let's see. I got all kinds of stuff here. Why don't we play the name game?
Okay.
I want to bring up a couple of guys that have passed. I want your thoughts on them, okay? We'll say the one that's most recent, Nick Steele. Any memories of Nick?
I got a ton of memories with Nick. All from him working with me. He worked for NECW. He was Evan's partner, the 666 Fight Club. And complete locker room general. Again, I think I've only worked him like maybe, I think one of them was for Tommy D. Great trainer. Just a good guy.
And that's what, like after he passed, just the post from everybody was in it. They were all saying the same thing, how he was such a class act and treated everybody good. You could be a 20-year veteran or a 2-day trainee, and he'd treat them both the same. Solid guy.
Yep.
All right.
Absolutely.
How about also another the late great DC Dillinger, who in my opinion is the greatest heel New England has ever seen on the independents.
And I will agree with that statement. What's funny is when I first met Dave is when he was first breaking in, and he rubbed me the wrong way. I just did not like him at all, and I was never quiet about who I liked and who I didn't like. So when we saw each other, it was always like a professional hey, but I never really talked to him, never really got to know him. I just didn't like him. It was me being stupid. Then when we merged with Sheldon, obviously he was in NECW as part of Sabotage. But he wasn't a singles wrestler. He was always a tag. And Eddie was going on his first tour in Japan. So Dave was going to be there alone. And I watched Dave work a singles match at the Framingham, can't remember the name of the hall. But it was where NECW ran in Framingham. And he was amazing. Like I watched his ring work, I watched him interact with the crowd, and just be his character. And I looked at Matt, and we needed to get the title off of John Walters. And we're driving home from Framingham, and we had a show the next day at the Hot Dog Safari, where we still didn't know who was going to take the belt off John Walters. And we're driving home, and I went, Matt, why don't we put the belt on DC? Matt almost, like, shit himself because I suggested we put it on DC. So we did it, and that's where DC's run as a singles guy started. And it was, again, he was amazing. And I had the pleasure of tagging with him towards the end of his career and life, unfortunately. And we were the tag champs of UCW.
Nice.
Like I said, his untimely passing, which was horrible. That still sucks.
Absolutely. He actually passed a year to the date that my brother did. So it's coming up on 4 years for DC because it's coming up on 5 for my brother. How about Eddie and DC's manager? The most outspoken guy as a manager, maybe even all of New England wrestling, Sean Gorman, the manager of champions.
Sean has got to be one of the best talkers I've ever met in my life. And seriously, in Sean's prime and even now, if we could put him in a time machine, I would put him up against any manager that has ever been in the business. And I am serious when I say that. He could incite a crowd without using any of the cheap heat getters, just by being himself. And I knew Sean, he broke in a little Connecticut ICCW that became PWF. Like, Sean's just an amazing worker. And what a lot of people don't know is he's a really good baby manager, too.
Really?
Yes. And it happened by accident because Evan was not supposed to be as hated as he was. So we had to flip the script of the whole thing, and Sean had to be a baby manager, and he was just as good.
I believe it, but I bet he didn't like it as much.
Hated it.
All right. If you don't mind, I'd like to just bring up one more guy from the past. I met him only a couple of times, but he was a nice kid. Spider, Dan Quirk.
I had only met him probably 5 or 6 times myself. He worked for PWF. He kind of came in when I moved to Florida in 2004. Right at the end of PWF and the beginning of the merger. I wasn't in New England, but I was flying up every other month for shows. And so I only met Dan about a handful of times. But great kid. Respectful. Like, just a really, really nice kid.
Yeah, definitely. I felt the same way. I helped Jason put on a show in Lowell. I got him a school in Lowell years ago, and I got there early. I was doing the concessions. I was catering and all that, and he got there early. It was the first time I met him. And then I didn't see him for like a year, but he remembered my name. I mean, the kid was just very, like you said, very respectful kid to elders and to everyone, you know? Okay. How about the guy you had your last match for, Mr. Pat Dillon of UFO Wrestling?
Pat's funny because he's been around, like, before UFO started. He was around NCW and PWF because we ran the Quincy Armory every month. So he was always at shows. He was running his 666 fightwear. And then during that time is when him and his brother decided to start running shows. So once I stopped being involved in running a company, I worked for him whenever he had a show.
Nice. Well, I was there the last match you had. And I didn't remember. You told me off air it was against Bo Douglas and one of your students, Evan Hatch, Evan 6. What do you remember about that match? Your last one?
Honestly, nothing sticks out in my head. So that means I didn't blow any spots. Because I was, like I said, the last 3 years that I was doing this, I really shouldn't have been doing it. My body wasn't in good enough shape. I wasn't in good enough shape. But it's like a drug. You can't walk away. Like I said, if I didn't have the medical issues, I wouldn't be walking away. But I remember when Bo pinned me, he said thank you, told me that he loved me, and he started crying a little bit. So it meant a lot. I mean, all the guys in the back that knew me, because like I said, I showed up, and half the locker room I didn't know. They don't know me, so they're like, "Oh, we got another old guy in the ring." But everybody that knew me, it was cool. I enjoyed it. I was able to walk away and not regret it.
Okay. How long did you know before you did it that you were gonna have your last match?
I didn't. My wife and I had a heart attack a year earlier, and nobody really, like, I walked away for a little bit, and then I came back to wrestling up at APW with Woody. And I decided that I just couldn't do it anymore. So I looked at a show coming up where I could pretty much, they didn't run storyline. So it was easy to dictate having a match that didn't fit anywhere. So I ended up having my last match there, and I mean, I wanted to end it with Evan. I wanted to end it with Bo. So I've known Bo for 20 plus years. I've known Evan, he's 20 plus years. So I felt it was the best people to end it with.
Nice. Very nice. All right. I noticed you wrestled the guy I met a long time ago, Jimmy Jack Cash. You wrestled him at Chaotic.
Here's my last match in Chaotic.
Wow.
Here's a funny story for you. Randy Miller was renting the ring for all of his shows from Anthony Ruffo and myself. We had two rings. We had a 16-foot studio ring, and we had an 18-foot full height. Our truck broke down, so I had to go up to Methuen with our 16-foot studio ring. Well, Randy had a little temper tantrum, so he went into the back, and all the matches were already laid out. All the winners were circled. Now, at that point, it's been over a year, and I was the only undefeated wrestler in Chaotic. They didn't mean to do it. It just happened. So about 3 months earlier, I was wrestling Lewis, and I brought this to Randy's attention, saying, you know, we can use this and build our story with Lewis a lot better. Use this angle that he keeps ducking me and stuff. So it would have been beautiful. Well, Randy had a little hissy fit. He went into the back, bounced out the circle on my name, and circled Jimmy Jack Cash, who is green as grass and was horrible. So I went over to Rich Palladino, who was the ring announcer, and I'm like, Rich, what the hell? He's like, I'm not getting involved. So I walked over to Randy, and Mike Hollow was sitting there. And me and Mike Hollow do not get along.
Oh, wow.
Not even a little bit. And when Mike Hollow had just signed an agreement with Jamie to combine Kowalski's and Chaotic. That was right at the beginning of that. So right there, I knew, okay, I'm done. So I went up to Randy, and I was like, so what's going on? He goes, you're putting over Jimmy, that's the end of it. And he walked away from me. I was like, okay. So I went in the locker room, and I sat down, and I started getting dressed. Duke Dalton came over to me, and he goes, you okay? I said, I'm great. I go, I don't know how Jimmy's going to be tonight, but I'm great. And he's like, oh, shit. He goes, hey, look, you broke a bottle over my head last show. He goes, why don't I go in there, interfere, and make it so Jimmy goes over on you because I interfered? And I'm like, whatever, dude, I don't even care. I'm done. So we had the match, and it's on my Facebook. If you watch that match, Leo, I stiffed the shit out of him so many times. I put him in the tree of woe, and I bent him underneath the bottom tail. And this ring was stiff as hell. And just watch the match, and you'll understand why I'm saying what I'm saying. So he comes up to me in the back, and he goes, so I'm going over. This is what we're doing. And he starts flapping his mouth. And I'm like, hey, yep. And he goes, so you got all that? I'm like, yep. He goes, so my finish is to forget about it. And I'm like, okay, what's that? You know, to forget about it. I'm like, no, Jimmy. What is it? You know, to forget about it. I say, look, kid, it's not on TV, not in WWF. Nobody knows you or what your finisher is. What is it? So that was how the end of the thing goes. I get ready to go through the curtain, and and I forget who the ref was that was behind the curtain. It might have been Rick Lannon. He goes, "How is this going to go?" And I said, "I'm going to tell you when to count to 3. He goes, "Okay." So like I said, I beat him silly. And then let Duke hit me. He hit me with a bat between my legs and put me through a table. And that was my last match in Chaotic. As I'm driving home, I called Randy Miller and I said, "I want out of my contract." He goes, "No." And I was like, "Okay, just so you know, I'm wrestling for NWA New England tomorrow. So my contract's null and void at that point anyway. Have a nice life."
Wow. That's crazy. That's a good story.
I called up Jason Rumble and I said, "You got a show tomorrow, right?" He goes, "Yep." I said, "I'm on it." He goes, "How you doing that?" I said, "Don't worry about it. Set me up a run-in. I'm coming in." And that's the end of it.
Nice. All right. I want to bring up some names that I know you've worked with one way or another that doesn't get mentioned a lot here. This guy's great. Marshall McNeil.
Marshall was a manager for NECW and maybe even PWF. Great kid. Funny as hell.
Yeah, he is funny. How about Johnny Idol?
Johnny Idol, when I met Johnny, he was a manager.
Right.
Unfortunately, I never got to work Johnny. I worked him when he was a manager. He was a mixed tag partner with Kevin Landry against me and Matt. And I actually gave Johnny my finish, which was a Razor's Edge powerbomb. And he was like 150 pounds soaking wet.
Wow. That's crazy.
Yeah, but he was small.
Now, so you never wrestled him and Mike, huh? The Egomaniacs never took on that would have been a great match.
What's funny is, I guess I wrestled Mike Steele. I mean, that's one of the matches that I found online that I don't remember ever having. Like, there's a match on the line between me and Rush, and I don't remember ever wrestling together.
Wow.
So I'm watching the match completely dumbfounded.
That's crazy. How about Ebony Blade? I know he worked for you, right? Ebony Blade.
Oh, actually, he's the person that put me over for my first heavyweight title.
Nice.
He was Anthony Rufo's champion, and he was getting ready to move back to California or take his first law job. So he needed to step away, and they needed to put the title on somebody. And I had just come back to wrestling from my leave after Mayhem. And Eric told Anthony that he wanted to put me over for the title.
Nice. How about, I don't hear a lot of nice things about this guy, so I don't know if you're going to have good things to say or bad things to say. Gio Giovanni.
I knew Gino before Gino became Gino. He broke in at NEWA. I mean, I don't know if he ever really got trained, but he wrestled. He did a lot of stuff down in Pennsylvania with Steve Carino and the original TWF.
Right.
Things with Top Rope. But I've known Gino for years. He's never done wrong by me.
Nice. Okay. Just saw a name here. How about Billy Black?
I actually inducted Billy Black into the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame.
Nice.
That was his induction. I've known Billy since he broke in with NEWA, and we wrestled a ton.
Yeah, very underrated guy. You don't hear a lot of people saying about him, but I enjoyed watching Billy wrestle.
He was a blackjack mulligan throwback. Like, he did more with less as far as less effort. Like, he was just a tremendous heel.
I agree. I didn't bring this guy's name up, and we already talked about the other three, George Carroll, DC, and Sean Gorman. How about the Impact World Champion, diehard Eddie Edwards?
When Eddie first broke in, I remember seeing him with his little braids, and this is before he started teaming with DC. And I was like, oh, who the hell is this kid? And then I watched him work, and he was a great worker, even from the beginning. I mean, you could tell he was green and still learning, but he's a tremendous hand. I mean, and now, I mean, I would put him in the top 15 workers that exist right now.
I definitely agree.
It's a shame that he hasn't gotten the true exposure that he needs, but I would put him against anybody any day of the week.
Nice. Yeah, it's a great. Congratulations, Eddie Edwards, for winning the Impact World Championship a couple weeks ago. Guy Alexander, does he owe you money?
No, he does not owe me money.
Good. I hope he's doing well out there. I really do. I mean, a lot of stuff. You must have seen all the posts going on. He's borrowing money and stuff. Just a horrible thing. So, Guy Alexander, wherever you are, I hope you're doing good, bud. Right? That's all we can hope for.
Fiction's a horrible thing.
Yes. Seeing that you were on with him just recently and he's on next week, here's your chance to bury, I'm just kidding, Steve Stallion, who's my guest next week.
Here's the thing about Donnie. He is a genuinely really nice guy. But sometimes Stud takes control and you want to punch him in the face. I mean, I've known Donnie since we all started back in '92. So it's like when somebody talks about him, I'm like, yeah, but you don't know him. That's just him. Like, a lot of people think he's a big mouth, which he is. But, I mean, he really doesn't hide behind anybody. He'll tell you what you think. And, I mean, I've probably had serious speaks with him at least a half a dozen times in our relationship. And it's usually over something stupid. And it's squashed the second we see each other again.
All right. How about another guy that doesn't get mentioned that often on the show, Timmy Kilgore?
Tim worked for PWF when I didn't really know him until I bought into PWF. And then I got to know Timmy. He was a trip. Him and Keith Murphy and Rui Botello, those guys were all like using a pod back then. And it was funny. It was really fun to watch.
I don't know if you noticed this, but he's been doing like songs as he comes out for his entrance where he wrestles now. I want to say it's either NCW, Showcase, one or the other. But he does like show tunes. And I swear to God, he kills it. The guy's talented. He should be on Broadway. Seriously. He really should.
Doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it.
All right. We got about a little over 4 minutes. How about T.J. Ritka?
I get to say that I had my best and my favorite match against that man.
Nice.
Him and I worked a bunch of times for different companies, and it's always like breathing. It's so easy. I know what he's going to do. It was probably my favorite match to date, and that one's on my Facebook too.
I'm definitely going to check these out. How about Scott Ashworth?
Scott was actually my first pro match. I had already been working for a couple years, and I went up to the Whaling City Festival with Matt when Savannah Souza was still booking. And Matt had already worked for them on one show, but I hadn't yet. So I went up there to meet everybody, and Scott didn't have an opponent for the first day of the Whaling City Festival. So Matt told Savannah that I could work and blah, blah, blah. So I got booked against Scott. So me and Scott are talking over our match. And back then, I had a rocket up my ass. So I was doing moonsault, the elbows, all that stuff. But Super Bad Steve Bradley was just breaking in, and that was his shtick. So Savannah was like, put the kibosh on that. So I just told Scott, I said, look, just job me out. You're not going to have to even lift a finger, and I'm going to fly all over the ring.
Nice.
It's one of my favorite matches.
I'm surprised you didn't do like impersonation of him, because a lot of people on here, when I bring him up, they do. I've never met him, so I can't wait to hear him talk to me someday if I go up there and see him with Sonny or something, you know? How about... What's that?
Just talks like this, you know?
Right. How about the Canadian superstars, Dave Cole and Jay Buster? You had a few matches with them.
Yeah, Dave Cole and I, he was a great kid. Matt and I made him our heavyweight champion PWF when we did the reboot. The Canadian superstars and the Dogs of War had a lot of matches.
Because I definitely was at a few times you guys wrestled them. I was in attendance.
Somebody always seemed to get hurt. I don't want to say it was Randy's fault, but somebody always seemed to get hurt.
All right, we'll blame it on Randy. Sorry, Randy. How about Ryan Drew?
Professionally, I don't really know Ryan. I never really worked with him. He worked for PWF a couple times.
Okay.
But I never worked him. So, but personally, I never had a problem with Ryan. He was always professional, and he's a good guy.
Nice. Yeah, he was a great guest on here, too. We got like 47 seconds left. Let's just chit-chat. Kyle, I'm going to have you on again with Steve in a couple weeks. Most likely, I'll send you guys a September date, and we can do the three of us again. I really enjoyed it. You know, you guys do have chemistry. I loved how you guys would bicker back and forth a little bit and not afraid to admit you had heat, you know?
Not at all.
Nice. I will get Matt. Matt, I know you're going to be watching this, so I'm going to hit you up. You got to do the show. If it has to be Skype, it has to be Skype. But I'd much rather have you come up here, or maybe I can bring the cameras down there. Kyle, again.
I'm actually moving back to New England in the next 3 months.
Beautiful. I'll have you both on. Kyle, we're out of time. Thank you, my friend.
Leo, it's been great.
Take care. Peace.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.